I think the older generation thinks that the youth are people that they don't really understand. Like, there are a few misconceptions or like stereotypes that they have about youths. Things like how we're always addicted to our phones or addicted to technology, or how we're always so busy and we don't have time for family.
This tension between at the same time being so full of promise, at the same time being at the danger of ruining this promise. Too non-resilient. That's what the strawberry generation is about, right?
They think that we are very dependent on technology. We take things for granted, and we don't know how to appreciate the small things that we have. And I think that has its truth within it. Like, we do take things for granted because we are so fortunate in this generation. We have technology on our hands, we have the internet, we have our phones, and we do take things for granted, like our friendships and all that. Like, it's all on our Facebook, right, or our Twitter, and we can just talk whenever we want. So I think we don't treasure a lot of things that the older generation treasured.
Youth. People who are so full of promise and yet also bring to mind words like recklessness or temperamental. Each generation of youth have similarities and yet also differ in many ways. What about youth then, as we're celebrating? We meet up with different people from different walks of life to find out more.
My name is Zuraj Chainan. I'm from Victoria Junior College. I take theatre studies as one of my subjects. I'm in the drama club and I do emceeing in and out of school. I was part of this Esplanade emceeing mentoring program, and there was like a whole bunch of other people, and they were all older than me, so it was quite scary. Like, they were 19 and above, and then the oldest guy was 27 or 28. And it was quite scary. But like, I think it was quite interesting because like we have these sessions where we were trained by a professional MC, and then after that we have like our practice in our trainings, like where we will each go and like say a script and all that, right? And it was quite interesting because we did it one by one, and once we look at all of them, right, then watch the videos of it, it was quite interesting because like you see the difference between all MCs and how they all have different styles, but yet it's not like any style is wrong. I think it was quite eye-opening.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm from BJC, and I'm the president of the Debate Society.
My name is Edgar. My day job, I teach in the Department of History at the National Museum of Singapore. At night, I do rather various volunteer work. So in terms of work with young people, I've been doing youth work basically since I came to uni in year 1 after national service. I started volunteering with a welfare organisation called Fairway FSC, right, Family Service Centre. Work with the youth team, and then 4 or 5 years after that, I started doing youth development work with the National Youth Council of Singapore.
Hi, I'm Ms. Rachel Teo. To be fair to youth in general, I think that actually not just youth today, but youth across different generations always have that kind of positive energy about them that you don't really find among people who are older. Youth also possess that kind of sense of adventurism, that willingness to explore.
What do you mean by youth? What exactly is the substance behind this category? Is it associated with ideas of, for example, energy, passion, certain characteristics and attributes that are associated with youth?
Like, everyone likes to do something, right? So for me, it's talking, communicating with people, and making people happy. I'm passionate about acting. I think acting is very interesting because, like how they have the whole theory about how the whole world is a stage, right? And we're all players. And like every day you take on different characters when you interact with different people. And I think it's quite interesting. Like, some days you're nice, some days you feel like you're mean, some days you feel like being a badass mean guy, and then like some days you feel like being a gentleman to a nice girl that you like. I think it's quite interesting to be able to recognize that you're being a different character every day. And once you recognize that, then you channel that energy differently into your different productions that you do. And I think that's what acting allows you to do. It allows you to shift between characters, not just like on a daily basis, but like on a minute by minute basis. So like I can be a nice guy and a mean guy at the same time, and you wouldn't know what's the difference.
For me, debates is a very dynamic kind of activity that and kind of encompasses all my interests and all my strengths. Like I really like to know about the world around me. I'm very, very curious about the situation around us and why things are the way they are supposed to be, or what we can do to like help more people and improve the kind of world and the kind of life that we live in.
Young people are so passionate, dynamic, and that they quite easily get lost in their ideas and they do want to do what they want to do, right? Youth is a stage where young people have a lot of ideas, ideals, and also this comes at a time when they are trying to form their own identity, which means that they need to receive a lot of affirmation, attention, confidence, etc. So most likely this is the period where they'll be most self-absorbed. I'm not saying that in the negative sense, but self-absorbed in the sense that they're very concerned with defining who they are, what they want to do in life, what are their visions. So naturally, their actions, their decisions, their thinking will be very focused on what they think is right, what they think is the way to go forward. So it is self-absorbed in the sense that the point of reference is their own worldview.
Yeah, they're very interesting people. Like you see people from very different backgrounds, very different schools, but like they all have similar interests. Like the people I've met who enjoy acting are all bubbly people who are crazy with their friends. Most of the time, people who others would judge. It's quite interesting to meet these people because they're so different from you, yet they're very similar to you in the things that they like and the things that they do. That's quite creepy. You never think that someone would be so similar to you and yet so different.
What do you have to say about the youth acting scene or the youth MCing scene in Singapore?
I don't think it's very existent. Not a lot of people do it. Yeah, they have like small acting companies and all that, but it's not like a very big thing here. And I think especially in like the hosting industry and all, it doesn't really happen in the youth sector. It's more
I think that for youth debaters in Singapore, it's mainly a youth dominated kind of activity. So most of the people there are youths, and it's really interesting to see everybody of such young ages still being able to discuss topics that are way above their maturity and way above like what you expect of them. I've seen like secondary school children talking about the Eurozone crisis and about monetary policies and things that I might not even understand myself, and I just feel really heartened that everybody's putting so much work into it and that everybody's being so passionate about the things they love and about the situations in the world around us.
I like having a personal voice and like using it. Everyone has a voice, but not everyone uses it. And like,
what are some frustrating things about being a youth in Singapore?
I think we lack privacy. Like our world is it's so open and it's so accessible that we lack privacy. Like the things that we say on the internet can lead to us being sued, not by any particular person, but being sued, or like people take things very seriously on the internet. You don't have that free air to say what you want and not be judged for it. I think the previous generation enjoyed that a little more, not like fully, but they enjoyed that a little more when they could have like personal communication with someone else and not be taken at hand, like not be taken to court for it, for example. But today, because of technology, everything that you say can be recorded if someone were just to on his voice memos app in his phone, and like you never have that free, secure space to say what you want without having to face the consequences for it. But I think it's made us a lot more like conscious about what we say and like made us think a lot more.
Poor. They have the most ideas, the most energy, the most dynamism and vitality, right? It's not, but what they lack is the resources of the adults. Networks, connections, money. Normally they don't have that much resources to do the things they want to do. Right? So you find that protest movements, social movements, all they can do is use their energy and vitality, but in terms of having resources, they do not have that much compared to the adult forces. Does that make sense? Yeah, you may have the most ideas, the most desire, the most motivation to make a change, but most youths do not naturally have the resources.
I think what frustrates me about being a youth is I have so many ideas and like so many things to contribute, but it's so difficult to do that. Like a lot of the adults always think that just because you're a youth you don't really know what's going on, or you're being idealistic. and it's very difficult to convey like your ideas and convey like any suggestions that you have out there, and just like try and get in touch with people who can actually make a difference or actually like create some kind of action out of your ideas. I think that partially this is something that a lot of other youths also feel, because very much so we are very constrained by our resources or by our limitations. I admit that we are very young, and so it's very, very difficult for us to do anything with our lives at this stage. Like, we're supposed to continue studying and continue to develop ourselves before we can get to that stage. But I also think that a lot of youths these days are so passionate about so many things and about all their interests that it's kind of a waste to force us to go through the normal paths and like the normal channels before we can even reach there, which might take years. I just feel that's really frustrating.
What's very frustrating for youth in Singapore is that we're always stressed out by our studies, and like we always feel like there's that constant pressure on us by our parents, our grandparents, and everyone else to succeed in our studies and do well academically. Because like I think for the previous generation it was not so much a concern, because at that time it was more of sustenance, like finding means, finding ways to support your family and like.
I would say that I did a lot of things that young people nowadays may not have done in my age. I was going around catching grasshoppers, I climbed into canals to catch guppies. Basically, life was spent more on the streets, right? Having fun, making friends than in school studying.
But like for this generation, it's not like that anymore. Most of us are born with a silver spoon, fortunately, and like we have these basic amenities. So for us, that stress comes into like not just fulfilling our own dreams, but fulfilling our parents' dreams.
Ironically, if you look at it, celebrating youth helps us in a sense look at what are the beliefs, the norms, the values, the expectations in our society of young people. Yeah. But the question is then, does this place undue stress, undue pressure on young people to live up to these expectations? And are these expectations realistic given the context of today? Yeah. Not all young people are able to become youth leaders. Does it mean that their lives are not as valid or not as important? Not all young people are able to become entrepreneurs and bosses and employers. Does it mean that they are to be seen as inferior? Yeah. So if youth want to, it's not just about what adults want to celebrate about youth, but also what youth want to celebrate about themselves. You know what I mean? As a young person, you want what you want. You want what you do to be respected, acknowledged, and recognized by adults as well, and not have to live your life based on their expectations.
I think the other thing that is worth celebrating about youth is also that kind of idealism that most youths have, which people who are quite cynical will probably think that youthful idealism, it's not realistic. But I think in a world that we live in, it's very important to still have a sense of ideals, a set of ideals that we look at. And sometimes it is in the youth that you find this kind of very innocent, maybe sometimes not very realistic idealism, but are important for us to think about, for us to move forward and to reflect about our own daily practices.
I think there's a lot to celebrate about being a youth, but what's most like what I think is most valuable about our youth that we should celebrate is our inner happiness. Like a lot of us don't show it. We always show ourselves to be these depressed individuals who cannot go through life without feeling happy, but a lot of us are actually happy deep down. So we must start showing our happiness, and I think that's something we should celebrate, that we can be happy people and not be so stressed and bogged down by life. I think I can be who I want to be. Like I can do weird things outside, jump around and like make noise and scream out in the open, and like maybe I'll be stomped about it. I think I've been stomped before, but like they won't like like get you fired from your job or something.
I think the current news with us, like to some extent, they have a lot of coverage about youth initiatives and like entrepreneurship and things like that, and I think that that's great. But at the same time, we also have a lot of like tabloids and things like that, things like Stomp, that really discredit a lot of youths for the way they act in public. You have youths like cussing at elderly people, you have like NS men that don't give up their seats and things like that. And I think that that's ridiculous because every single generation has people that are, you know, more socially conscious and people that might not be as considerate as others, and that's not a problem with the generation in question, and you shouldn't use those generalizations to kind of characterize an entire generation of people that might prove otherwise. So I think that like the newspapers and like the media kind of characterize youth in like the two extremes. So either they are like really ambitious and really driven and really successful as a youth, or like you're really rude and like not socially considerate.
Right, because in a sense, you always have these ideas that youths are people in the process of being developed into adults. This process of youth as, in a sense, growing up to become adults. So there's always this sense that youth is seen as a transitional stage. Right, transitional stage is like the larvae becoming a butterfly, right? But why can't we just recognize the youth as youth and as persons, as individuals having their own issues, having their own concerns and their own interests at their very time, instead of seeing them as they will grow out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the history of youth, right, youth has always been regarded in a very strange, paradoxical way. They are both seen as a pillar, but they're also seen as a problem. You get what I mean? On the one hand, youth has been regarded as a very dynamic, energetic, passionate force that can be mobilized for social, political, and economic aims. You can use their energy for industry, for productivity, for work. You can use their passion and their idealism and dynamism to serve in the army, to fight a war, to serve as militia. Look at the Cultural Revolution in China. It was the young Chinese who were mobilized as the vanguard of the revolution, right? So in a sense, because they are stages where they're the most passionate, the most idealistic, the most dynamic. So that's where the potential part is. At the same time, there's also this flip side also, because in a sense, even as adults try to mobilize and encourage young people to fulfill their potential, right? They are also very scared of the potential of young people to create political, social, economic, or cultural chaos.
What sort of experiences with your friends have brought you to really believe in this youth generation will someday do something great?
I think our generation will be great leaders, like the future of our country. That's a very cliche thing to say, but I really think that our youth today are not worried to say what they feel about politics, to say what they feel about social issues, and like we have people going out there and because of the power of technology, they're using that to express what they really feel about groups that are disadvantaged in Singapore, groups that don't have access to things that we would usually have access to. Like I did a grassroots program over the June holidays, and like I heard about a lot of things that I've never seen before and never even heard of before in Singapore, like people living in tents at East Coast Park, and that's like their main housing, and like people struggling to even live in rental flats and not being able to pay for the rent. And like when you see things like that, you realize how different Singapore is from what we see it as. Like we see it as a city with lights and high buildings and like facilities that everyone has access to, but we realize that there's so many people that don't even have that basic housing that they need. And because of like our ability to express ourselves on the internet and our passion to like voice out what we feel, I think we'll make like very good leaders.
So embedded within the whole idea of youth itself is this idea that young people are here to drive change, and can create change, right? But how isn't it an irony to say that you are a change maker, but you're supposed to uphold traditions at the same time? This ironically interacts with the same dilemma and same conundrum I mentioned earlier. Youth is both seen as a pillar and a problem. Right? If empowerment means that you give them the resources and space to do what they want to do. On the one hand, you think that you want to do that so that they can use them and mobilize their energy and passion to change, right? But on the other hand, you're also afraid of the changes that they bring.
Generally, society needs to be more accepting that age shouldn't be a determinant of your abilities, and it shouldn't be a determinant of your efforts and contributions to society. I don't think it's really a systemic flaw because these channels are already in place, but I think it's more like some kind of mindset around society that people just, kind of discredit you because of your age. I think that needs to change.
If you could tell something to the older generation, what would it be?
I'll tell the older generation, don't hold us to the same standards that you have for yourself. Because every generation is different, and it's a different time now, and it's a different generation, it's a different society that we live in. So the same kind of values that you have as like in the past, in the older generations, it's very different from the kind of values that we might have now, or the different kind of priorities that we might have now. And I'm not saying that either one is better or either one is worse, but they're just individual conceptions of happiness and individual conceptions of how they want to live their life. And I think that, it's really unfair when we try and hold one generation to the ideals and values and priorities of the other generation, because intrinsically they don't understand each other, and because your rationality and understandings are bounded by your experiences. So I think, I just want to say that we are different, and that's fine. Don't try to make us something that we're not.
I think that it's always the case of how one generation of people or youth it will always be deemed as less competent or lesser in any particular form by the previous generations.
But of course, one way, of course, in a sense, is to actually, a lot of it is actually about getting adults to be reflective and think. You see, they were youth once, right? And they are basically undergoing similar struggles, similar pressures that they themselves went through, and they of all people should be the first ones to empathize and recognize and understand what their children or their youth are going through. It can't be that just because they became adults, they forget this period and they forget so just as they enjoyed and celebrated their own youth, they need to allow and accept that their children or their youth should have the right and the freedom to celebrate their own youth as well. So getting adults to recognize this is one important thing, I think.
I really appreciate the older generation for like the kind of hard work and determinants that they have. Like, I guess maybe it's because of the kind of historical narratives that we have in Singapore, and maybe it's just specific to the people I know. But my impression of them is that they are really, really hardworking and diligent, and they're the kind that persevere no matter what.
Trust us. Trust us to take care of you, and we'll take care of you and make sure that you have a good retirement, good life. And we won't take things for granted.
If you could tell something to other youths, what would it be?
I'll tell other youths to just be yourself. I know it sounds cliche, but I think that a lot of youths succumb to the kind of pressures that they have, be it like their personal pressures to do well, or like societal pressures to become a certain way or become certain kinds of people. I think that there shouldn't be a one-size-fits-all definition of success or conception of what a happy life or a good life is. I think that every single youth should really aspire to just make the most of what they want to be in life, and try to achieve that kind of success that they want, and be the person that they want to be.
Believe in yourselves. Don't put yourselves down and think that you're not good enough. I think a lot of my friends, a lot of us, we feel very insecure most of the time because we think that we don't know what's ahead of us. Because houses are the prices of houses are going up, prices of cars are never coming down. Everything feels so expensive, everything feels so insecure, and jobs are so hard to get. Just going through A levels is so hard, but I think we should never stop believing in what we want to do and keep fighting for it, because even if we don't get it now, we'll get it eventually if we believe in it. So fight for your dreams.
Be brave and continue. Always be open to exploring options. Don't move beyond the world of your iPhone, your smartphone, and your iPad. Open your eyes and look around the world. Know what's happening. That's important, because when you are informed of what's going on around, you are also able to make better and more informed decisions about your options for exploration. You will end up making better choices. So look beyond that smartphone.
don't grow up so soon. Yeah, I think don't grow up so soon. Yeah. Then you will never lose the energy and idealism.
It's kind of cool.
Just like little sprouts, youths definitely hold the promises of our future, where they will become mighty trees to shelter our nation. Let's treasure them and respect them as individuals for who they are and what they love and relish in. To the youths out there, go forth, forge on, and seize life before our wonderful but fleeting youth passes us by.